Good to go.
Thank you, Connor. Good morning. Today is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025. This is an adjudicatory hearing before the Massachusetts Gaming Commission relative to a request for a finding of durable suitability for FBG Enterprises Opco LLC, which is doing business as Fanatics Betting and Gaming, and which currently holds a temporary Category 3 tethered sports wagering operator license. I will refer to FBG Enterprises Opco LLC as FBG or Fanatics. My name is Jordan Maynard, and I'm chair of the commission. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Commissioners Eileen O'Brien, Brad Hill, Nikisha Skinner, and Paul Broder. The entire commission will preside over the hearing and decision in this matter. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with 205 CMR 101.01, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 10 and 11, and 801 CMR 1.02, the Informal Fair Hearing Rules. This hearing is being conducted via remote collaboration technology. Before we begin, I would like to explain the process that will govern this proceeding. First, a notice of hearing was provided to Fanatics in advance of today's hearing. Therein, it identified the issues that this hearing is intended to address. The Commission has indicated that it will specifically be considering the issues discussed in the notice, including the following: the durable suitability of FBG pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011, and the contents of the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau's suitability report. I will now turn to our Deputy General Counsel, Jenna Hentoff, to explain the suitability standard that we will be considering during our discussion today. Good morning, Jenna.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners and Fanatics. We're here today to consider a durable finding of suitability for FBG Enterprises Opco LLC, which is doing business as Fanatics Betting and Gaming under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1. The Commission adopted Section 215 of the regulations to govern suitability determinations in connection with sports wagering licenses. In Section 215, the Commission included provisions allowing for a durable finding of suitability, also known as the final determination of suitability, as well as provisions related to a preliminary finding of suitability. Fanatics currently holds a preliminary finding of suitability, which the Commission approved on January 12, 2023. This finding of preliminary suitability was based on an evaluation of the criteria set forth in 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 2, 205 CMR 218.06 subsection 5F, and Mass General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 6D. As a quick refresher, the suitability criteria enumerated in said statute and regulations include the following: the overall reputation of the applicant, including but not limited to the integrity, honesty, good character, and reputation of the applicant or qualifier, the financial suitability, integrity, and background of the applicant or qualifier, the business practices and the business ability of the applicant to establish and maintain a successful sports wagering operation, whether the applicant or qualifier has a history of compliance with gaming or sports wagering licensing requirements in other jurisdictions, whether the applicant or qualifier at the time of the application is a defendant in litigation or in litigation involving its business practices, the suitability of all parties in interest to the license, including affiliates and close associates, and the financial resources of the applicant, whether the applicant or qualifier is ineligible to hold a license under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 4, Mass General Laws, Chapter 23N, Section 9A, or Chapter 23N, Section 6E. Whether the applicant or qualifier has been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude, whether and to what extent the applicant or qualifier has associated with members of organized crime and other persons of disreputable character, and the extent to which the applicant or qualifier has cooperated with the IEB during the review of the application. By the terms of 205 CMR 215 of the Commission's regulations, any durable finding of suitability must be supported by clear and convincing evidence, not just substantial evidence, which is a lower standard used for the remainder of the licensing application. Our jurisprudence tells us that clear and convincing proof exists when the evidence induces in the mind of the fact finder a reasonable belief that the facts asserted are highly probably true, that the probability that they are true or exist is substantially greater than the probability that they are false or do not exist. For evidence to be clear and convincing, it must be sufficient to convey a high degree of probability that the proposition to be proved is true, and it must be strong and positive and full, clear, and decisive. In the matter before you, you may choose to award a durable finding of suitability if you conclude that the applicant and each of its qualifiers have demonstrated their suitability by clear and convincing proof. Such a finding would be a positive determination under 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1E and may include conditions and restrictions if applicable. If the commission determines that the evidentiary burden for suitability is not met, it would issue a negative determination with respect to suitability. And with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jenna. I understand that Fanatics is represented by counsel here today. So at this time, I would ask Fanatics counsel to please identify themselves and your team.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Adam Berger from Dwayne Morris on behalf of Fanatics. Today we're here joined by, as I said, the UN War Room here, but we have our 5 qualifiers here who are part of FBG's application seeking durable suitability. They are Michael Rubin, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Fanatics Parent Company, Glenn Schiffman, Chief Financial Officer and a member of the board of Fanatics Parent Company, Fanatics Holdings, Inc., Matt King, Chief Executive Officer of FBG Enterprises Opco, Michael Kahn, Vice Chairman of Fanatics Holdings, Inc., and Andrew Ellis, Chief Financial Officer of FBG Enterprises Opco. Also with us today around the room and on screen as well in a couple of situations are members of Fanatics executive team who are available to speak to issues that came up in the suitability report. They come from areas including legal, risk and trading, marketing, operations, product, technology, data and information security, responsible gaming, regulatory compliance, and VIP operations. So with that, we thank everyone we'd like to just thank staff for the incredibly hard work they've put over the past couple of years, their professionalism throughout this investigation process. We look forward to answering any questions you may have today. We also have a brief opening remarks that Michael Rubin would like to make when you're ready for that.
Well, thank you. I will say again, we appreciate you being here. If you'll just throw your hand up before you start to speak. You don't have to keep it up the whole time, of course, but that will help the commissioners be able to know who's who at the exact moment. But we appreciate that introduction. At the conclusion of my opening comments, this proceeding will commence with the IEB's presentation of its findings to the commission. Pursuant to 205 CMR 215.01, subsection 1, and 205 CMR 115.03. Any commissioner may ask a question of anyone presenting information at any point during or following the presentation. At the conclusion of the IEB's presentation, Fanatics will be afforded the opportunity to ask questions of any individual who presented information on behalf of the IEB as well. At the conclusion of the IEB's presentation, the licensee will be given the same opportunity to make a presentation. They may call any witnesses and present any other evidence they desire. As before, any commissioner may ask any question of any witness or presenter at any time during or after any presentation. Fanatics may raise any objection it desires at any time, though the basis for that objection must be clearly stated. After the licensee's presentation, the commission will address each topic area from the notice of hearing in turn, and each commissioner will have a full opportunity to ask questions of any witness concerning those topic areas before we move on. Finally, at the conclusion of the presentations of all the evidence, the licensee will be provided with an opportunity to make closing remarks, summing up its view on suitability. Before we begin, I understand that there are a number of exhibits for consideration at this hearing that have been submitted in advance. Those exhibits are as follows, and I ask for your patience. Notice of hearing dated April 2nd, 2025. The IEB report regarding full suitability investigation and regarding the application of FBG Enterprises Opco LLC doing business as Fanatics Betting and Gaming for a Category 3 sports wagering license. Tethered, dated April 1st, 2025. The IEB's report regarding review for preliminary suitability, dated December 16th, 2022. A report regarding review for financial suitability of Fanatics Enterprises Opco LLC doing business as Fanatics Betting and Gaming, dated April 1st, 2025. Michael Kahn individual qualifier reports, dated April 1st, 2025. Andrea Ellis individual qualifier reports, dated April 1st, 2025. Matthew King individual qualifier reports, dated April 1st, 2025. An updated political contributions history for Matthew King, 2022 to 2023. Michael Rubin individual qualifier reports, dated April 1st, 2025. Glenn Schiffman individual qualifier reports, dated April 1st, 2025. Updated litigation history for Glenn Schiffman, 2020 to 2022. Errata sheet received from FBG. FBG remediation plan and factual corrections for the cybersecurity program and incident response. FBG remediation for the AML risk assessment and internal audit. FBG updated license list as of March 2025. FBG ownership and organizational structure as of March 2025. And FBG finance remediation supplemental response. Are there any objections to these exhibits being marked and entered into evidence?
Not from FBG.
Thank you.
None for the IEB.
Thank you. These exhibits shall be admitted into evidence. I'll ask to keep a clean record here, that everyone, when possible, refer to those exhibits by exhibit number when those documents are being referenced. If anyone would like to have an additional document entered into evidence during the course of the hearing, please ensure that they are properly introduced and marked for the record. As explained, the Commission anticipates that its inquiry at this proceeding will be related to the matters addressed in the notice of hearing relative to the licensee's durable finding of suitability. In the event that a line of questioning conducted by the Commission moves into an area that has not been included in the report or notice, but that is material to the final determination of this matter, any party may request a recess in the proceeding in order to review the issue. The Commission will deliberate and make a final decision at the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of this hearing. The written decision, give me 1 second. The written decision will be issued as promptly as possible. If at any point during the Commission's deliberations it determines that further testimonial or documentary evidence is desirable, it reserves the right to ask the appropriate party to provide such evidence prior to a final decision being made. All right, we will now swear all the witnesses in. Attorney Kramer and Attorney Berger, are all the individuals you anticipate presenting testimony in this matter present on this call?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
All right. If anyone comes later to testify, it will be up to you to alert the Commission that they have yet to be placed under oath. I'll note that Commissioner Skinner often reminds me too, so please watch for that, Commissioner Skinner. Anyone who will be testifying at this proceeding, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will provide before the Commission at this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. For the record, everyone responded in the affirmative. A proceeding of this nature necessarily requires the consideration of a wide variety of information that takes several forms. In this case, some of the information and documentation may include commercially sensitive information. The discussion of such information may place an entity at a competitive disadvantage if such information were to be publicly disclosed. For the Commission to be able to execute its legal obligations effectively and diligently prior to making a final finding, it must be at liberty to fully inquire relative to any of these sensitive matters without compromising the individuals or entities involved. To do so or to do otherwise would be at a minimum unfair and potentially unlawful. Accordingly, my colleagues and I may elect to exercise the discretion afforded in accordance with 205 CMR 101.01 paragraph 7 to close this proceeding to the public to fully address certain matters related to privacy, proprietary or sensitive technical information, including but not limited to software, algorithms, trade secrets, or for any other good cause shown. Under this same regulatory section, Fanatics may request that portions of this hearing be closed to the public as well, and any such request will be considered in turn. Any request must clearly state the matters for which the commission is being asked to close the proceeding to the public. The closed session will be limited to only those matters raised in the request. Before we begin, it's my understanding that a pre-hearing conference was conducted in this matter on April 10th, 2025, with representatives of the licensee, the IEB, and legal counsel, at which procedural and evidentiary issues were discussed. Does anyone have any preliminary issues or objections they would like to raise?
FBG does not.
None
Thank
for
you.
the IB.
Thank you. With that, I will ask Attorney Berger on behalf of Fanatics to please proceed with any opening remarks you would like to make, and I will say that this would also be a good time if anyone else would like to make any opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Our opening remarks were made by Michael Rubin, a CEO of Fanatics. Michael?
Sure. Hey, guys. Michael Rubin, founder, CEO of Fanatics. I really just wanted to say thank you for all the time and energy that all of you are putting into this thorough review. We appreciate the partnership. We care about you guys a lot. You're an incredibly important state to us. And as I was saying that, I've just realized that I think I uniquely have shown my loyalty to the state of Massachusetts multiple times. The first was when the Philadelphia Eagles played the New England Patriots. Some of you may know that I was asked on national TV who I was rooting for. And for the fear of being killed by Robert Kraft, I said the New England Patriots, that it was not safe for me to go back into Philadelphia territory for weeks. So that's number one. And number two, I realized I also sat at your closeout game with the Celtics last year to watch the Celtics win the championship. Having been a former owner of the Philadelphia Sixers, I still had no fear and celebrated you guys winning the championship. So I've actually had a lot of great New England sports moments, probably more than anybody from the state of Pennsylvania has ever had. But we seriously appreciate you guys. You guys, you're such an important state to us. I think you're one of our first. I think you were the third or fourth state that we launched in. And I spent a lot of time in Massachusetts. I'm sure you guys know we own Lids, the headwear retailer. We've got dozens of stores there. We got a really big business in our commerce business and our trading card business. So we love you guys. And no one gives more love to Boston sports teams against their best interest than Michael Rubin. So just want to say thank you and appreciate you guys.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Commissioner Broder.
To that point, I think you're overlooking the fact that you were in ownership in 2017, were you not?
I was in ownership of the Philadelphia Sixers, but yes, I was.
And that was the year the Sixers traded the rights to Jason Tatum and received Kel Fultz, if memory serves.
I would say it will go down as one of the biggest charitable contributions in sports ever known. And I think with that, this should be the fastest review. And you guys should just thank me for everything in the state of Massachusetts. I think it was so bad that my involvement, I need to cease my ownership of the Philadelphia Sixers. And just because, and actually Jason Tatum was my guy. So I came to support him last year. So after the humiliating and embarrassing trading up to number one and being fleeced by the fine Boston Celtics, we just had to switch teams and get with the winning team.
Several of my Sixers fans, friends that are Sixers fans, still say too soon when I bring it up. So,
I'm a little built different. I like being abused, so I can take abuse like within 10 minutes after. So anytime you feel the need to give me abuse about some of the horrific things that we've done in Philadelphia as a sports city, especially with the Sixers, you can give me all the hard time that you want, and I'll actually enjoy taking it.
Will do. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Broder, for reminding us of that wonderful blunder to the city, this city. We're glad that you survived your Boston fandom, Mr. Rubin.
I gotta tell you, in 2000, when the Super Bowl happened and I thought I was being loyal to family, I really didn't realize. That's when I realized how serious Philadelphia sports fans were, because I was almost I was not safe for a few weeks. So you guys have great sports fans.
Thank you for that. All right. With that history lesson, we're now going to turn to Attorney Kramer to make any opening remarks on behalf of the IAB. And Attorney Kramer, you can move straight into your presentation after that.
Sure. Thanks, Chair. And good morning, everyone. Kathleen Kramer, Chief Enforcement Counsel, Assistant Director here at the IAB. I want to thank you for this opportunity to address the suitability of the applicant, Fanatics Enterprises Opco LLC, doing business as Fanatics Betting and Gaming, or FBG. And as you noted, Chair, in the beginning, I will also try to refer to the applicant as FBG or Fanatics during my remarks today. As an initial matter, I want to recognize the members of the IAB who worked on this suitability investigation. On the state police side, we had a team led by Lieutenant David Collette that was comprised of current GEU members along with retired GEU members working in a contract capacity that lent their efforts and expertise. On the financial investigation side, we had a team led by our Financial Investigations Division Chief, Monica Chang, that was comprised of MGC investigators, along with investigators from the firm of RSM, who worked extremely diligently and thoughtfully on this investigation. Additionally, I want to recognize IAB Director Monahan, who's also here today on behalf of the IAB, who's provided guidance and leadership throughout the process. And lastly, I'd like to thank the applicant, who's been cooperative and engaged in this investigation. As the Commission recalls, this applicant submitted an application for a tethered Category 3 license pursuant to General Laws Chapter 23N, Section 6B3. The applicant is tethered to Plainville Gaming and Redevelopment, doing business as Plain Ridge Park Casino, or PPC. PPC holds a Category 1 sports wagering license and a Category 2 gaming license. The IAB conducted a review for preliminary suitability pursuant to 205 CMR 215.01 subsections 2A and B, and submitted its report regarding its review for preliminary suitability to the Commission. That preliminary report is marked as Exhibit 3 in your packet today. As Deputy General Counsel Hentoff noted earlier, on January 12, 2023, the Commission voted unanimously at a public meeting to allow FBG to request a temporary Category 3 sports wagering license subject to conditions specifically set forth in 205 CMR 220.01. On February 23, 2023, the Commission's then Executive Director issued a temporary Category 3 sports wagering license to FBG. On May 16, 2023, FBG received its operations certificate and began operations on May 25, 2023. Since that time, our licensing division has rescoped Fanatics' application based on the legislative amendment to General Laws Chapter 23N, Section 5B and 205 CMR 215.01, and identified 5 individual qualifiers and 7 entity qualifiers, which are included in this review. The IAB conducted an investigation for full suitability, and its findings are included in the report submitted in anticipation of today's hearing, which is marked as Exhibit 2 in your packet. The IAB's review was performed in accordance with 205 CMR 215.01 subsection 1C, which is set out for you on pages 5 through 7 of the IAB's report, again, which is marked as Exhibit 2. As the Commission knows, suitability is an ongoing concept. The IAB conducted its investigation to assist the Commission in determining whether FBG is suitable at this time. In determining the suitability of the applicant and its qualifiers, the Commission shall evaluate the following factors that were set out in General Laws 23N, Section 6, 205 CMR 215, and 205 CMR 218, as outlined by Deputy General Counsel Hentoff previously. As part of the investigation, the IAB reviewed submissions, interviewed qualifiers, had numerous follow-up conversations, visited the Fanatics headquarters, reviewed the business entity disclosures for entities, reviewed the mass supplemental and multi-jurisdictional personal history disclosures for individuals, as well as additional information requested from the investigators as needed. All of the individuals submitted the required forms and responded to the supplemental document requests. As the Commission recalls from previous hearings, the IAB's work into durable suitability occurred during a finite period of time. The majority of the information contained in the IEB's report is as of December 2024, with some exceptions, and the information came primarily from observations and review of documents as well as interviews conducted. Again, as the Commission knows, the IEB's process includes a factual accuracy review in which Fanatics responded to comments and findings made by the IEB and also provided updates on remedial measures, which are included in the Commission's materials today. I believe they're marked as exhibits 10 through 15. Our presentation today will give you a brief overview of the investigative process and summarize the key points. All of the investigative steps were done to assist the Commission in evaluating whether the applicant has met its affirmative obligation to demonstrate its qualifications, as well as the qualifications of each of the entity and individual qualifiers as of today by clear and convincing evidence. To provide an overview of today's presentation, you will first hear from Mike Banks, a civilian investigator who worked on the GEU side regarding the scope of their review and their findings. You will then hear from Dan Mass and Chris Fitzgerald from RSM. Dan and Chris will present the IEB's review for financial suitability for the applicant and the qualifiers, and we will end with the IEB's review of Fanatics corporate governance with Chris. Ultimately, you will hear that based on its thorough investigation, the IEB is recommending that the applicant and all of the qualifiers have established their qualifications for durable suitability based on the factors noted earlier by clear and convincing evidence with recommended conditions, which I will discuss at the conclusion of the IEB's presentation. And with that, Chair, I would call my first witness, who is Mike Banks, a retired member of GEU.
Please proceed.
Great. Mr. Banks, if you could describe the investigative process that you took on the GEU side of this investigation, as well as your findings with respect to that.
Will do. Thank you, Attorney Kramer. Good morning, Chairman, Mayor, and Commissioners. My name is Michael Banks. I'm a civilian investigator assigned to the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Assisting me in my portion of this investigation is Trooper Julio Perez of the Massachusetts State Police. Pursuant to our investigatory standard operating procedure, we conducted an in-depth review of all applications and submissions from FBG Enterprises Opco, LLC. And a thorough background investigation was conducted regarding this applicant. The applicant consisted of 7 entity qualifiers: Kinetic F LLC, Silver Lake Partners 4 LP, Fanatics Holdings Inc., Fanatics Global Holdco LLC, FBG Enterprises Topco Inc., FBG Enterprises Holdco Inc., and FBG Enterprises Intermediate Holdco LLC, as well as the 5 individual qualifiers: Matthew King, CEO of FBG Enterprises Opco LLC, Glenn Schiffman, CFO and Executive Vice President, Fanatics Holdings Inc., Andrea Ellis, CFO of FBG Enterprises Opco LLC, Michael Kahn, Inside Director, Vice Chairman of Fanatics Holdings Inc., and Michael Rubin, Chairman and President, CEO of Fanatics Holdings Inc., and Managing Member of Kinetic F LLC. As part of this investigation, routine communications were conducted with the applicant, which required the submission of additional information and supplemental documents. The process by which this investigation was conducted involved extensive research and the discovery of any additional information which could be learned about the applicant, associated entities, and the individuals from as many sources available to us. Queries were conducted for any criminal history of the entities and individuals at the state, local, and federal level. As of the date of this report, the IEB only has authorization to review fingerprint submissions of individual qualifiers who own 10% or more of a corporate applicant. Without access to fingerprint submissions and therefore automated fingerprint identification services, also known as AFIS, the IEB is unable to run national criminal history checks on individual qualifiers. But investigators did utilize criminal record checks through the Department of Criminal Justice Information System, which is state-specific and reliant on biographical data only. No derogatory information surfaced in our queries. We also queried civil litigation databases and reviewed lawsuits filed against the applicant, entities, or individuals. Particular attention is paid to any suits that contain any accusations of derogatory or fraudulent business practices. Investigators noted that all litigation disclosed and or discovered appeared to be in the normal course of business and did not reflect any concerning pattern of conduct involving Fanatics or any of its associated entities. As the Commission is aware, a high-profile lawsuit was filed against a Fanatics employee named Michael Hermelin by DraftKings. Mr. Hermelin was alleged to have utilized inside knowledge of DraftKings operations, growth plans, and privileged information in violation of a non-compete agreement that he had with DraftKings. Fanatics was not a party to that litigation, and that matter resulted in a settlement in December of 2024. We also queried Secretary of State databases regarding any filings reported by the applicant or qualifying entities. Results obtained were reviewed for any derogatory information and none surfaced. Open source and media outlet checks were conducted and reviewed, including social media. Any material information regarding any of the involved entities or individuals was noted and documented in our report for the Commission's review. We also conducted a review of aggregated public data from subscribed software tools by the entity applicant, entity qualifiers, and individual qualifiers. The aggregated public data included, but was not limited to, FEIN records, fictitious business name records, executive affiliations, corporate filings, world check profiles, world base records, the Office of Foreign Assets Control records, and UCC records. No derogatory information surfaced that was associated with the entity applicant or its qualifier. Also, as part of this investigation, investigators contacted other jurisdictions in which the applicant was already conducting gaming-related business or in which the application to conduct gaming business was pending to determine if licenses were in good standing. All responses received from other jurisdictions revealed no derogatory or disqualifying information regarding their existing licensure or suitability. In addition, investigators reviewed original and updated submissions of reports relative to regulatory fines and violations of Fanatics by other gaming jurisdictions. In many cases, substantive reports were available for review relative to the facts and circumstances of said violations. A summary of these violations has been submitted to the Commission, which includes the jurisdiction, the nature of the violation, as well as the ultimate disposition. Investigators noted that Fanatics Betting and Gaming entities were alleged to have committed over 20 regulatory violations in various states. And we noted that 8 of these regulatory violations related to wagering, advertising, or timeout violations to voluntarily excluded patrons. Relative to the individual qualifiers, in-person interviews were conducted of all individual qualifiers, and full reports were prepared, which have been submitted to this Commission. In addition, queries to verify educational degrees, professional licensures, and political donations were conducted, as well as queries of law enforcement databases. The investigators also conducted a site visit of Fanatics headquarters in New York City in August of 2024. Investigators noted that each floor of the building was dedicated to one of its business verticals. Employees were required to use key cards to access certain floors and areas. Restrictions existed to limit non-essential access, and visitors were required to be accompanied by designated Fanatics personnel. Investigators noted the installation of security cameras in various locations, and the company maintained an active visitor monitoring, screening, and verification protocol upon entry. Included in the report to the Commission, investigators noted several significant issues surface, which are worthy of note. The details of those matters are found in pages 74 through 77 of the report. And I will summarize just one of those matters here, which is a United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaint. The application disclosed that a subsidiary of Fanatics, specifically Fanatics Retail Group Fulfillment LLC, settled a race discrimination and retaliation lawsuit filed with the EEOC in 2019. The complaint alleged that the sports retailer permitted a racial hostile workplace and retaliated against an employee who complained. In 2019, the Fanatics subsidiary agreed to pay $322,050 to settle the matter, as well as a consent decree to institute measures to prevent such incidents from reoccurring. During our interview with Mr. Rubin, investigators inquired into the incident, and Mr. Rubin explained that Fanatics had purchased this company located in Jacksonville, Florida, which maintained manufacturing plants in that city. The incident arose from an employee who worked at that location. Mr. Rubin stated to us that he reviewed the EEOC findings and believes that the EEOC, quote unquote, got it right, and that the company made remedial changes to prevent such incidents from reoccurring again. Mr. Rubin stated that Fanatics is a better company as a result of the changes implemented as a result. And Mr. Rubin further stated that he is wholly against racism in any form, and that he must ensure that those values are instilled in the culture of all employees of the company. This concludes my overview and summary of our portion of the investigation.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. And Mr. Chair, I should remember this at this point, but I'm not, if the commission has a preference to hold questions until the end, or if there are any questions for Mr. Banks, at this point, we'll be turning to the individual financial suitability review with Chris Fitzgerald, but happy to pause here if that's the commission's preference, if there are any questions for Mr. Banks or Trooper Perez.
Councilor Kramer, I don't blame you. Oftentimes I have the same, have to jog my memory the same way. Commissioners, would we like to ask questions of Mr. Banks now, or would we like to move forward? Looks like we want to move forward.
Great. With that, I'm going to turn the presentation now over to Chris Fitzgerald. We'll be discussing the review of financial suitability for the individual qualifiers. So the commission is well versed in seeing Mr. Fitzgerald before them in these types of hearings. And Chris, if I could ask you just to start with the methodology that was utilized for the review of the individual's financial suitability.
Yes, thank you, Attorney Kramer, and good morning, commissioners. We perform financial investigations of 5 individual qualifiers. Matthew King, CEO, FBG Enterprises Opco, LLC. Glenn Schiffman, CFO and Executive Vice President, Fanatics Holdings, Inc. Andrea Ellis, CFO, FBG Enterprises Opco. Michael Kahn, Inside Director, Vice Chairman, Fanatics Holdings. And Michael Rubin, Chairman, President, and Chief Executive Officer, Fanatics Managing Member, and Kinetic F LLC. The focus of our work was to assess the financial stability, integrity, and background of these individuals by analyzing their sources of income, analyzing key components of income tax returns, performing due diligence with respect to assets and liabilities reported on net worth statements, and reviewing each individual's credit history via a credit report obtained from a National Credit Bureau. For each individual qualifier, we reviewed their application submissions, made follow-up requests, and conducted open source research. Documents reviewed included, but were not limited to, the multi-jurisdictional personal history disclosure form and the Massachusetts supplemental form. Within these forms, the area most relevant to our procedures was the net worth statement and its supporting schedules. We also reviewed tax returns for a 5-year period, IRS tax transcripts, credit reports, property deeds, titles, mortgages, bank statements, and brokerage statements. We analyzed these documents to look for signs of financial instability, unexplained sources of income, or financial interests that may conflict with duties as a gaming licensee. Finally, we held a formal in-person interview with each qualifier alongside representatives from Enforcement Council and the Gaming Enforcement Unit to inquire about any unclear items. During this interview, we inquired about qualifiers' educational and professional background and their duties with respect to corporate governance and compliance of the applicant.
Chris, if you could now turn to your findings with respect to the individual's financial suitability.
Yes. Overall, the investigation did not uncover any derogatory information that would indicate the individuals lack the requisite financial stability, integrity, and background to be deemed suitable in accordance with the criteria listed in the Massachusetts gaming law and regulations. Each of the individuals we met with were forthcoming and responsive to our questions. Follow-up questions were answered sufficiently, and we did not identify any adverse findings during our procedures. And if the commissioners have any follow-up questions, we would suggest moving to a closed session for any specifics.
Councilor Kramer, is now a good time to ask that question, or did we want to move on and hold those? Do you have another witness? Is what I'm asking.
We do have 2 more segments of our presentation. We'll be turning to the financial suitability review of the applicant. And before we get into that, I was going to note that that might be a good time to pause because I believe there might be a request to go into private session for the entirety of that portion. So to the extent there are any questions on the individual financial suitability, we could certainly do that in private session as well, as I think that's probably the most appropriate. But the next segment of our presentation will be with Dan Mass of RSM on the financial suitability of the applicant. So I might maybe turn it over, if you're okay with it, Chair, to Attorney Berger, who I think made request to go into private session for this.
Yes, for the financial suitability section regarding the entity or individual questions for that matter, we believe closed session would be appropriate.
All right. So commissioners, let's go ahead and ask any questions that we need to ask right now, or in the alternative, or in addition, let's talk about going into closed session. Any questions right now? All right. I'm not going to reread all the language in CMR 101.01 paragraph 7, but I read it earlier. Would we like to enter into closed session for the matters stated on the individual qualifier reports? And Jenna, make sure that I got the language right. I know sometimes we get in there and go out of scope. So I
Yes,
don't wanna do that.
Yes, if any of the commissioners have any questions, if they don't have any questions, you would not need to, of course, enter a closed session for that reason. However, I know Fanatics requested a closed session for discussion of the entity's financial information as well. I would also note at this time, I would assume that there's also going to be discussion of corporate governance at some point, if we want to roll that all together, if I may suggest.
Yes, and Fanatics would also request that the corporate governance discussion be held in closed session as well.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Kramer, are you okay with that?
That's fine by me. We have two segments of our presentation yet with Dan and Chris, and I would just note, I think this is the first time that the commission is reviewing an applicant that's a private-based company. So I think that's part of the request here, is there's not a public parent company at top. So most of the information that was utilized by RSM in their review for financial suitability was done based on private information that's not public. So happy to move into a closed session where we can continue with Chris and Dan's presentations on both the financial suitability of the applicant and Chris's presentation on the corporate governance.
Absolutely, and thank you for that, articulating that distinction, Counselor Kramer and Counselor Hintoff. Commissioners, are we good with moving into closed session?
I am.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. I'm getting yeses across the board. Commissioner Hill just nodded yes. All right. So let's move into closed session for the next part of this presentation. All right, I think we can take the screen down. Second. All right. So give everyone a second to get back on. I would like to note for the record that during the private session, the commissioners did ask some questions of Fanatics related to matters of noncompliance, business strategy, and marketing, in addition to the noted discussions related to financial information and corporate governance. We just finished a pretty robust conversation in private session. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Councilor Kramer and ask her if the IEB now rests.
Thank you, Chair. The IEB would rest. We have no further evidence before today.
Thank you. Attorney Berger, does Fanatics have any questions for the IEB relative to their presentation?
We do not have any questions as to the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions suitable for the IEB for their public presentation? All right, we will now turn to the presentation by Fanatics. Attorney Berger, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Fanatics does not have a formal presentation. We'd certainly like to thank the commission again and staff and RSM for their professionalism and their support throughout this couple-year process. We'd also have a few comments from our CEO, Matt King.
Hi, Matt King. I just want to reiterate Michael's opening statement about how much we appreciate the commission's diligence in this, how important our partnership with the state of Massachusetts is, and how much we look forward to operating in the state for years to come in a very responsible and upstanding way. Unfortunately, I don't have any good 76ers stories. So the best I can do is support the local New England teams. But I do sincerely appreciate all the diligence and the partnership as we've navigated this and for the years to come.
Thank you, Mr. King. I'm assuming with that, Mr. Berger, you're essentially resting. I will give one more opportunity at the end to make any final comments.
Yes, we would rest, and we'd also stipulate to to the documents in the record and the testimony today.
All right. Do any commissioners have any questions for Attorney Berger or any of the presenters relative to Fanatics' comments and presentation as to what it was? Are there any other individuals we would like to hear from, commissioners? Does the IEB have any questions for Attorney Berger?
I do not. Thank you.
All right. We will now turn to the specific itemized subject matters from the notice of hearing, and thank you, Attorney Berger, for stipulating to those. With respect to the first bullet from the hearing notice, which states the durable suitability of FBG pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011, does any commissioner have any questions for any witnesses present here today, generally with respect to the durable suitability of Fanatics pursuant to 205 CMR 215.011?
No.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. And I'm getting no's from the other commissioners for the record. With respect to the second bullet from the hearing notice, which states the contents of the Investigation and Enforcement Bureau's suitability report, does any commissioner have any questions for any witnesses present here today regarding this topic?
No.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill, and I'm seeing no's across the board. All right. Now that we've heard all the evidence in this matter, before we move to the closing remarks, I would like to turn to my fellow commissioners once again to make sure there are no further topic areas that anyone would like to explore. and that all of our questions have been answered. All right. We will now move to closing remarks. Each of the parties will be afforded the opportunity to make a statement summing up their position, though they need not do so. Attorney Berger, would you like to proceed with any final remarks?
No further remarks other than thank the commission and staff one more time, and hopefully that we can move forward with our durable suitability today.
Thank you. And thank you for your cooperation during this matter today. Attorney Kramer.
Yes, Chair. I do have a brief closing, which I'm happy to hop into now. I just want to thank again the members of the IEB who worked on this investigation. As the commission is able to see, there was a substantial amount of work that went into it and a lot of collaboration from all of the teams. And as the commission knows, the commission is doing it as well. All of these teams are working on investigations simultaneously presenting to the commission. So just want to recognize everyone who's here today and who's not present today who contributed to the conclusion. On the GEU side, we had Lieutenant David Collette, who managed the investigation, and like to also thank Mike Banks and Trooper Julio Perez for their work and time. I also want to recognize Monica Chang, who put in a significant amount of work managing both our in-house and RSM teams. And as you've heard, there were a number of RSM members who worked on this investigation, led by Greg Navaloff. The team members included Chris Fitzgerald and Dan Mass, who presented here today, as well as Shannon Neville, Emily Provost, Gianna Kubiak, Melissa Voigt, and Devin Banks. I also want to thank MGC's financial investigator Stephanie Butler and IEB paralegal Lily Papanico, both of whom worked continuously to bridge the gap between the MGC and RSM teams. In sum, taking into consideration the entirety of the IEB's investigation, the IEB has concluded that the applicant and each qualifier has established their qualifications for durable suitability, again, based on the factors we've heard about numerous times today in 23N Section 6, 205 CMR 215, and 205 CMR 218 outlined previously and in the IEB report by clear and convincing evidence. The IEB recommends that the commission find the applicant and all of the qualifiers suitable, subject to conditions which are outlined on page 78 of Exhibit 2, but I'll reiterate here in my closing remarks. The conditions include that the individual qualifiers provide updated fingerprints when the IEB is able to review them, and no derogatory information surfaces from such review. As noted in the IEB's reports, if the IEB were to locate derogatory information as a result of those queries, it would alert the commission for a reevaluation of suitability. The IEB is also requesting that Fanatics provide an update to the IEB on any remedial measures and improvements to their cybersecurity policies in the areas of access control, access management, business environment, application and data security, recovery and monitoring of open and closed sources that are made within 12 months of a date of decision of suitability. And lastly, that Fanatics continue to provide updates to the IEB on the status of the Gaming Compliance Committee. We heard some updates in the presentation today. The IEB requests updates on any changes to the membership, meetings that continue to be held, cadence of future meetings, and agenda items within 6 months of the date of decision on suitability, and also request that Fanatics provide copies of meeting minutes to the IEB for any meetings held on an ongoing basis, again, acknowledging that there has been an update since the IEB's report was submitted. I would just remind the commission that suitability is ongoing, and each qualifier has a duty to maintain suitability during the pendency of licensure and to update the IEB on any matters that could reasonably impact suitability. And of course, the IEB will continue to monitor suitability on an ongoing basis. Just want to thank the commission for its time this morning, and that concludes the remarks that I have on behalf of the IEB.
Thank you, CEC Kramer. I want to thank you for your work today, as well as Mr. Berger and all of your teams. Also want to thank Mr. Rubin and his team for being here. Unless there are any further matters that the IEB, Fanatics, or my fellow commissioners would like to address, we will now conclude this portion of the proceeding. Does anyone have anything further? All right, it looks like I'm getting everyone out for lunch. The commission will now deliberate about this matter in private. We are adjourned. Thank you. All right.
And commissioners will be moved into a breakout room now.
And for those